episode 102 of Flick, James Flick, your one and only movie reviewing secret agent. Today, I will be reviewing a historical drama film that came out in 2013 that is directed by Steve McQueen and that stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, and that movie is 12 Years a Slave. Well, this movie has just started, and so far, our real-life main character, Solomon Northup, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, is right now making a living as a violinist. Uh-oh, Solomon Northup has been kidnapped and chained up. Now he's about to be forced into slavery. That would be a rough life to live if you were an African-American person back in those days. So Mr. Northup has been taken to New Orleans, Louisiana, along with other captive African-Americans. That is pretty harsh, I would say. Now he has been given Platt as a slave name. All right, now he has to learn to make the best of his tough slave life. Now the slaves are being forced to do all kinds of hard labor, some of which involves lumber. Nowadays, whatever lumber we buy is the kind that is made by people who get paid freely to do it. Platt AKA Solomon Northup is declaring that he will be determinate in the face of his tough slave life and keep himself hardy until he is granted his freedom. Now these slaves are being made to pick cotton. Such tough times for them, I bet, but that's the way it was done back in those days. We are now an hour into this movie, and so far, for these slaves, they are pretty good at music and dance. Man, I am liking how this movie is so far accurately depicting such a dark period in America's history. Well, so far, I think that Platt, aka Mr. Northup, has quite the perseverance for such a harshly mistreated slave. Now he is writing about the miserable experiences he has so far had over these years as a slave. It just goes to show America may not have always been perfect throughout its history. Wow, these slaves are also pretty talented singers. Maybe it's because they came up with such hopeful songs back in those days. We are now 2 hours into this movie, and so far, as we are getting closer to the end of this movie, Platt, aka Solomon Northup, is about to be granted his freedom after a little more than a decade in slavery. It just goes to show you that even sometimes back then, if possible, a slave could be granted his or her freedom after having to unfortunately spend part of their lives in slavery. Now Mr. Northup is shedding tears of joy upon being able to gain his freedom back after all these years. Overall, 12 Years a Slave is an emotionally gripping and accurate but sometimes hard to stomach cinematic recreation of a dark period in U.S. history, which is the era of slavery. Join me next time when I review Gravity. I'm Flick, James Flick, your one and only movie reviewing secret agent out there.